My name is Brian Crombie. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Mississauga Summit. For the next 15 or 20 minutes, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the big ideas from each one of the task forces so that each one of you can get a sense of the big ideas from each one of the task forces. Then what we're going to do is we're going to ask you to split up into 4 different working groups. We're going to go to different rooms. And then what we're going to do is the main job of today, which is to try to pay attention to and figure out what we can do to ensure implementation of these big ideas. So clearly what we'd like you to do is to give us input into the big ideas. Hopefully you'll like them. If you think they should be amended, please tell us what you think should be amended. But what we really want to focus in on is, okay, this is the big ideas. Where do we go from here, and can you help us do that? To give you a little bit of background, we had a meeting at UTM about a year ago, almost about a year ago right now, and we asked you and other people in Mississauga to join task forces. We had over 120 people agree to join 4 different task forces. The task forces have been meeting. One has been meeting twice a month. A lot of them have been meeting once a month for the last year. The commitment has been unbelievable. I've had the privilege of going to a bunch of the different task force sessions, and I think the amount of input that we received from interesting people, studies that have been done, the roundtable discussions that have been taking place have been unbelievable. They've been, for those of you that have been part of the task forces, I think that the dialogue has been really very interesting, and I think a lot of very good ideas have come up. Then the big ideas had to get decided, and you may know the story that one of the task forces had a secret ballot, and the vote was 6-7 on which was going to be the big idea, so that there was an incredible amount of interest in what was the big idea, and to have the vote down to come to 6-7, I thought was absolutely interesting. And the idea that didn't make the top is actually on the front page of the Mississauga Business Times this month, and so therefore some of the other ideas that weren't quite big are pretty big still. So congratulations on some of those other ideas. So I think that the whole process has been really interesting. One of the things that I think, though, is critically important is we take a step back right now as we go into the next stage and remind ourselves, number one, of what the vision is for the Mississauga Summit. We had a whole visioning session where the steering committee and a bunch of the task force chairs got together to say, we've had these summits, what is it that we're trying to do? And we agreed that what we're trying to do is chart a brave, bold future for Mississauga together. So the idea that it's forward-looking, it's a future, and it is civic engagement. It's together. So that's what's the differentiator of why we're here and what we're trying to do. We're not trying to do what the mayor does, what council does, what other people do. We're doing something as people from the community working together. And then what's the objective for today? The objective for today is to identify, engage, and get commitments from key allies in the community. And some of you are here today, and unquestionably, this is a kickoff to a process that's already started in a bunch of meetings that I know that's taken place, but we'll have to continue over the course of the next couple of months with the key stakeholders that we need to get to buy in and or help us with the implementation of these ideas if they're going to go anywhere. So that's what we want to do in the next hour and a half, is identify, engage, and get commitments from you and other stakeholders, or identify who they are that we have to get commitment from, and allies in the community to move these things forward. I was at a fascinating session on social entrepreneurship, and they said one of the problems in social entrepreneurship is people either focus on the mission or just the strategy and forget about actually getting something done, or they just focus on getting things done and forget about why they're trying to do it. And the one answer that came from these academics that spend too much time doing academic stuff, but was really quite interesting, was that you got to think about the why, the what, and the how. And then they also added, and the when, the metrics, that you got to think about doing things. And it may sound simplistic, but I think too often we forget this. And so what I'm hopefully doing is telling you with the mission, reminding you what our mission is, civic engagement and bold, brave future for Mississauga. The strategy I'm about to tell you, which are these 4 strategies that we've come up with. And then what we want to do in the next session when you break out is think about how you implement it. And then further think about, in that implementation, can we break it into measurable metrics that we can measure? Because the old saying is probably true, what gets measured gets managed. And so we want to think about putting that into the steps so that we can actually have the metrics that we can then manage. So the mission, brave, bold future for Mississauga together. The strategy I'm now going to talk to you about. What I want you to do is think about implementation and metrics. The context for today is that we want to gather you together. We want to provide you the overview of these big ideas and implementation strategy, and then we want to have the group discussions to think about how we go forward. I'm going to talk about 2, Shelley White's going to talk about 2, and then we're going to send you packing to the breakout groups. So the first one is the post-secondary task force, and I think we've had a lot of conversation about this, and you've probably read a fair amount about this. It's been unquestionably an issue for all of Canada, as we talk about that we've got lots of students being trained for jobs that no longer exist. And I think that the line in the Globe and Mail back a couple of months ago, done by the former president of Seneca, which is 1 million jobs gone unfulfilled and 1 million people without jobs, was a great way of coining it. That we have this mismatch between the people we're training and yet at the same time a whole bunch of people that are here that don't have jobs, and businesses and companies that have got jobs gone unfulfilled. And so that, I think, is the question. And then the Institute of Competitiveness and Prosperity in Toronto and a lot of other organizations have come forward with some statistics on how we're not actually providing the kind of education to the people that we want if we think our future is innovative, high-tech, biotech, things like that. That we award 30% fewer doctoral degrees and 50% fewer master's degrees per capita than the USA. So we think that education is a big benefit that we have in Canada, and we invest a fair amount in Canada. And we had our last meeting at UTM. Today here we are in the Peel Board of Education. Maybe our next meeting is going to be in the Sheridan Business School when it opens up in Mississauga, which would be great. But do we as a society, do we in Mississauga have the right kind of commitment to Mississauga? We ended up having this one presentation back in a year ago where one of the presenters made the comment that can you think of a major city, particularly a major city on the periphery of another major city that becomes great that doesn't have a world-class post-secondary institution? And the example that they gave was Stanford or Cambridge, Massachusetts, or Cambridge, England. And UTM is great, but is it of the level that we need today to be called world-class? And up until next year, we don't have a college in Mississauga, one in Brampton, one in Oakville, but not in Mississauga. And then research and innovation is critical to participate in the global marketplace. We know that. And we had at one of the post-secondary education task forces head of innovation for one of the Fortune 500 companies that's here, and we asked them what's the most important thing that we could do for improving entrepreneurship and innovation and research in Mississauga, and her response was, you got to have more engineers graduate, and you got to have more math and science people graduate. And if you have more engineers graduate from Mississauga with a great engineering school, which we don't have, and or more mathematicians and scientists, then you're going to be more innovative and you're going to be more successful. So the post-secondary task force and Eva Lieberman and Andrew, maybe the two of you could, no, it was Anthony, it wasn't Andrew. Where's Anthony? Anthony Wensley and Eva were the two co-chairs of that task force, met for the course of the last year. And the big idea they came up with that they're going to be talking about in their breakup group is a Mississauga Innovation Network, which is trying to combine all the creativity and intelligence for all of the sectors in our city in one spot, in one network, in one organization that ends up having branches that branch out, assuring opportunity for the next generation of students and creating the next generation of businesses. And that we then create this global reputation as a home in Mississauga for innovation and internationally skilled labor force. So that's the big idea, a Mississauga Innovation Network that combines the UTM, that combines the hospitals, that combines Sheridan, that reaches out to the different companies, that ensures that we're training the people with the right education for the jobs that we need of the future. And what we want you to do, if you're interested in that topic, is join that breakout group and talk about a little bit more about what the idea is and how we can grow it and implement it. The second task force was a waterfront task force. They actually, it's interesting, they changed their name 3/4 of the way through. Initially, they were the Waterfront Redevelopment Task Force, and then in the end, they changed it to the Waterfront Redevelopment and Regeneration Task Force. And I thought this was fascinating because they had one person who came to one of the task force meetings who said, you know what, a lot of what you're talking about is similar to what they're talking about in Toronto, which is getting down to the water and looking at the water, walking beside the water, but what you're not talking about yet is touching the water or actually getting into the water. And then he brought pictures of a swimming race across the Port Credit River. I don't know when it was, 50, 60, is Jim here? How many years ago was the swimming race across the Port Credit River? So 50, 70 years ago, 60 years ago. And so the idea being we need to revitalize, and we can take what Toronto's trying to do with their waterfront a big step forward if we can think about revitalizing that waterfront so that we don't smell it, that we can touch it, and that we can get in it. And I thought that was interesting. So the issue is our waterfront credit river, the city's hidden gems. And for any of us that have been out on a sailboat or a yacht in Port Credit Harbor or out by the Port Credit Yacht Club, there's just no question. The face of Mississauga from down there is stunning. It is absolutely stunning. And if you haven't had a chance to go out on some of the jetties that you can get to on that new trail that's out by the park at the bottom of Mississauga Road, the view of downtown, the view of the lake, the view across the lake, the view back to Mississauga, it is spectacular. But most residents aren't fully aware of how large it is, its beauty, and its opportunity, both from a waterfront standpoint, but also from the River Valley offers. As a side, like this past Sunday, I had a chance to do not all, but a little bit of the Tour de Mississauga, and the trails that go up through Meadowvale and down through Lisgar are spectacular. And, you know, how many people get to enjoy that? We have the potential, therefore, to become an internationally renowned model of planning and environmental integration utilizing best practices and technology. There's 490 acres of land, 130 or something like that in the OPG lands itself, 22 kilometers of waterfront. And I think the mayor would tell you that every time an opportunity came for a property that was being developed, we tried to buy that property so that all the citizens of Mississauga could enjoy it. By the way, I was asked, in addition to tonight, to mention that Lakeview, Inspiration Lakeview is having a meeting on October the 6th. There's flyers out on the table. So in addition tonight, if you're interested in this topic, the city itself is having a community engagement meeting in 2 weeks' time, October the 6th, at Mississauga Senior Center on Cawthra Road, to ask the community what they want in the waterfront. So the Waterfront Task Force similarly has been meeting for the last year, had a bunch of input from Waterfront Toronto and a bunch of cities worldwide that and in Ontario that have had waterfronts and what they've done from a redevelopment standpoint and have come up with their big idea. And that big idea is to ask the city of Mississauga to establish a Mississauga Waterfront Development Corporation, probably mirrored on some of the things that have been done in Toronto with the Toronto Waterfront Redevelopment Corporation, but taking it a big step forward, such that this would be a separate organization, a separate company with the ability to plan long-term and get funding long-term to design and ensure a continuous, vibrant waterfront, to integrate all the diverse spaces within that waterfront, and to have continuous contribution to the environmental, economic, social, and physical well-being of all of the residents of Mississauga. We had this big debate as to whether it's Mississauga or Peel or larger than Ontario, and I think we came in the end that it's probably Mississauga, maybe Peel, that we're not thinking about something that's a tourist attraction for people from all around the world to come to, but what makes a lot of sense is that it's the waterfront that people from all over Mississauga and probably Peel can go to. And if you've been down there on a beautiful Saturday afternoon, that's what's attracted to the waterfront today, and that's the kind of opportunity that we can provide. I think that this is a great idea. It obviously has had a huge impact on Toronto. Elsewhere in the world, Pittsburgh, Chicago, places that have done these waterfront redevelopment corporations, I think have brought the kind of emphasis to the issue that you need and the planning and the ability to develop over long term. If you're interested in this idea, we'd like to encourage you to join that breakout group and help us think about the implementation plans going forward.